الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا وحبيبنا وسيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. يقول الله تعالى: إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا وحبيبنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The chapter we're covering in the Shamaa'il today, and by the way, we're nearing the end. And when we near the end, then inshallah I'll grant you all ijazah. I'll print it out and whatnot, with the help of Dr. Jimmy, of course, inshallah ta'ala. Jazakumullah khairan. And then we can move on to seerah, or another subject related to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, inshallah, something to think about. But this chapter today is about the hijama of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What is concerning, the narrations concerning the hijama and the cupping of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And of course, I might not be a doctor, but you'll be surprised, I'm actually trained to give hijama. When I was in Medina, there was a clinic of hijama across Masjid Quba. Masjid Quba across, there's a famous clinic there. And so one of the clinics over there, they had a training course for tulab ilm, for students of knowledge, to learn hijama. And I was grateful enough that I was able to attend, and so I learned a lot about hijama during that time. So I'm not just speaking about it theoretically because I read through the commentaries of the Shamaa'il, but also because I actually did it. I actually used to do it. Not anymore though. So no personal requests. I don't want to get legally, responsible and this, that. You start passing out and then it's all on me. You go to a clinic, inshallah ta'ala. But the word hijama, of course, comes from al-hajm, which means al-mas, sucking, okay? Hajama as-sabiyu thadya ummihi idha massahu. Basically, just as a child, suckles with his mother, same thing. Hijama comes from that root letter, okay? So the process is, and I'll just tell you the process because I actually did it, is you have to sanitize it with the alcohol wipes and this, that, and you have to have a surgical needle, very, very sharp. But before that, after you sanitize it, I'm sure you've done hijama, I'm just reminding you if you've done it already. And then in that sanitized area, and let's say you have hair there, you have to trim the hair there, and then sanitize it. And then they put the suction cups, they let it feels weird if you did it for the first time, but if you're used to it, it's nothing. And then after they do that, and then they take the surgical needle, very, 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 very sharp. Like even if you just touch it against your skin, it's going to cut it. And then you make small, small, small cuts, and then you put the suction cups, and then slowly, slowly, the bad blood, they say the bad blood is getting sucked out. And of course, this is from the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Sallu ala Rasulillah. The Prophet ﷺ, in narrations, there's many narrations related to hijama, and I promise you there was so much to read about hijama that I didn't have the time. I had to do a premarital counseling session, so there was no time. There was so much to read about this subject, and you can imagine how much there is to say. I'm going to give a summary of it. But the Prophet ﷺ, in Isra wal Mi'raj, anytime he would pass by one of the heavens, he would be told by an angel that mur ummataka bil hijama. Tell your ummah about hijama. Alaykum bil hijama. Tell your ummah about hijama. Tell your ummah about hijama. Whether the ahadith are sahihah or this, that, but the reality is hijama was a practice of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and it was a practice of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum after him. Another question comes. Okay, now if the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam did some practice of medicine in his time, does that also apply to me now in 2024 when modern medicine has completely evolved? I've already given that lecture before. If you want to review the video about the kuhl of the Prophet ﷺ, I spoke about it. There's different opinions. There is, and us as Muslims, we have to realize that not everything is black and white. There's a lot of nuance in our tradition as well. Even with hijama, okay, let's say we take the opinion that it is a prophetic medicine and that it is sunnah for us to do, which I believe. But does it mean that for every sickness that you have, you do hijama? I have a fever, hijama. I have cancer, hijama. I have a foot fungus, hijama. Some people, wallahi, they think hijama cure. Some medicines of the Prophet ﷺ that he practiced and he did is for everything. I have this problem, hijama. This hijama. La. The Prophet ﷺ, when it came to certain things that he would have ailments with, and he would have a certain problem, he would do hijama. He had a headache, he did hijama where? Right here, top of his head, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He had one time his feet were aching him after Hajj. He did hijama on the top of his feet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And I'll mention the different sunnah spots that they taught us in that clinic. So something to think about as well. But just as the Prophet ﷺ did it for certain issues, that's how we should also have this type of relationship with hijama. Okay. Going into the chapter, but before that, I just want to mention some fiqh rulings related to hijama. Okay. When someone does hijama, do they have to do wudu after? According to the Hanafi madhab, they have to do wudu after. Shafi'i madhab, no. According to the Hanafi madhab, they have to do wudu after, and they also have to wipe the spot, because then the blood spots are there. So they have to wipe it, and they also have to do wudu. For us in the Hanafi madhab, if blood flows, okay, then you have to do wudu. You have to, of course, wipe it, but you have to do wudu in the Hanafi madhab. Or if it becomes so big that it's the size of half of a dirham or dirham, I believe it was dirham, I forget. But basically, in the Hanafi madhab, you have to, of course, do wudu when it comes to flowing of blood. What about when you're fasting? Can you do hijama when you're fasting? Yes. You could do it so long as it doesn't weaken your body. Okay? You can so long as it doesn't weaken your body. That is the opinion of the madhahib. The Hanabila, they say no. If it breaks the fast of the one who's doing the hijama and the one who the hijama is being done upon. This is the Hanbali opinion. But we say, and the other madhahib say, that this hadith is mansukh. It's abrogated with another ruling. Okay? What about in ihram? Can you do it in ihram? When you're in hajj and umrah? Yes. You can, so long as you're not shaving the hairs. If you're shaving and trimming the hairs, some people, they don't have any hairs. If you do on my arm, khalas, you're going to have to take out a whole, shaver, you have to do a whole kit. Some people, they're for their back, they have to take out a lawnmower too. But some people, they don't have any hair, so for them, they can do hijama, no problem. So it depends on the person, and of course, it depends. But if they do it, if they have hair and they trim it, then whatever the consequences are that are mentioned in the books of fiqh, giving a dam, doing fidya, this, that, are then applied for the one who does it in the state of ihram. Can the person who does hijama take money? According to all majority of the scholars, that they can. They can take a fee for it, of course, just as any other thing. But the Prophet ﷺ advised against it. Okay, he advised against it, so it's disliked to do. It's not the best source of income for a person to have, but is it a valid source? Yes. Especially if someone gets a certification, they open up a clinic, this is that. At this point, this person is completely certified. But you being amongst people and then doing it is a different thing. Can you do hijama from the opposite gender? No, come on. We have to make this very clear cut. As a male, you cannot go to a female sister to do hijama. And a female sister cannot come to a male to do hijama. Is it a necessity? Is it heart surgery that you need to do heart surgery and there's only one doctor in the world that can save you? No, there's no necessity out of it, okay? So you don't have to, you're not allowed to do hijama with the opposite gender. And same thing with all practices of going to the hospital, this, that. If you could find, as a male doctor, go to a male doctor. As a female, if you could find a female doctor, go to a female doctor. Unless there's a specialist, and you know that there's only one person, and this person is much more trustworthy, then there is leg room. But for you to just not care and just go to the opposite gender as in terms of medicine and doctor, then this is, of course, not allowed in Islam. Dr. Hatim al-Hajj, he is a faqih and a doctor, and he's very strict about this. So if he is very strict about it, you can imagine how we should also approach it in this regard. So the first hadith in this chapter of the Prophet ﷺ, Anas radiallahu anh, he was asked about the wage earned by a person who does cupping. Okay, he replied, the Prophet ﷺ, sallu ala Rasulillah, he was cupped by a man named Abu Tayba, and he instructed that he be given 2 sa' of food, a specific amount. The fuqaha, and they all talk about what is a sa', what is this. A sa', it's like this, okay, a food. There's a specific amount, they said 4.06 liters, Allahu alam, I didn't check myself. He spoke to his people, the masters of Abu Tayba, okay, and he asked that his labor tax be lowered. Okay, so basically what they would have a deal with is that if they had a slave that they had owned, and they would allow him to work, they would allow him to keep money, but then they would have to give a tax to their owners. That is the thing. The Prophet ﷺ, he interceded on behalf and he said, lower it for him. The tax that you have is too high, lower it for him, and they lowered it for him. So you see the Prophet ﷺ, he spoke on behalf of people in his community. And then the Prophet ﷺ, he said, the best of remedies you can use is cupping. The best of remedies you can use is cupping. Or another riwayah, the most suitable of remedies you can use is cupping. Okay? So again, the Prophet ﷺ, he did it himself, ﷺ, and then he encouraged it with his own words, and then his Sahaba radiallahu anhum practiced it after. And there is one narration, you and I, we have bad blood. Can we not? Yes or no? Some people, when they do hijama, it comes like black, like tar, and very thick. Have you ever seen it before? Who's done hijama? I've done hijama a lot. Huh? No, yourself. Have you done hijama to yourself? Have done hijama? Then everyone, if you haven't done it, at least do it once in your life so you can say you practice the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Not saying do it all the time, but at least to say it once. I used to go, and this is a personal story that I'll share. I used to do hijama all the time growing up. I had knee issues. And when I went to the doctor, they said I had juvenile idiopathic arthritis. This is a personal story. Maybe you'll benefit. The doctors, every time I would go, medicine, steroids, medicine. MashaAllah, so much medicine in my body, I was living in the medicine cabinet. That's what the modern medicine is, yes or no? I'm just telling you from my own experience in this regard. My knees were swollen. And so this was the case, and my dad, of course, someone who goes to tabligh, he thought that hijama would be a solution. Swelling, remove the bad blood. I kept doing it. It wasn't helping. In fact, I kept getting worse and worse. And then it got to a point where they said that, khalas, we suggest that we IV even more medicine inside his body. My dad said, no way, no more, khalas, no more medicine. They're going to IV you now too? Khalas, mafi. And this was about the time where I was, not about the time, but years later, very soon later, I was going to go to Medina. So I detoxed slowly out of all of the medicines that they had put me on. I don't know if Dr. Junaid is here, or maybe I'll make him listen to this later, see his opinions on this. When I went to Medina, I went to a hakim, those homeopathic experts that know natural medicine. And so, wallahi, what the doctors could not fix, I'm telling you, and I had Muslim doctors, and I wasn't going to like some cheap hospitals. They were taking me to some big time hospitals, the Children's Hospital in LA. We were driving far to many specialists. Mafi, years and years, nothing was helping. I went in Medina to that hakim. First, my shaykh, he read Quran to me. He said someone had put ayn on you. May Allah protect all of us from ayn. Allahu alam, I don't know. I'm not an expert on ruqya and this, that. He said there was an ayn on you. I removed that. Then I was brought to the hakim. The hakim, I'm not kidding you. In 2 weeks, he fixed what the doctors couldn't fix in 7 years. My entire teenage years, I was still athletic. I was still playing around, this, that. But of course, it's drastically impacting a child if his knees are swollen. What they couldn't do in years, the hakim fixed in 2 weeks. And so I was like, subhanallah, how much does modern science actually not know about what is out there and the possibilities? Is it true or no? How much is there that we do not have knowledge of? And even modern medicine yet is to discover. What he fixed, this is my personal experience. I'm not telling you some weird, ajib story. My own personal experience, in 2 weeks, just massaging and putting oil, and he said, avoid this in your diet, avoid this. And then he cracked me up in ways, wallahi, it was so painful. But then I was completely fixed. Shay ajib, yani. When I went back in that summer to that same Muslim doctor, he would come in Jumu'ah to our masjid. And then when he found out like the whole thing, wallahi, he was like, this is a miracle from Allah Azza wa Jal. Because he was personally dealing with me. He was the doctor in the Kaiser Hospital, and he was dealing with me with all of these years as my pediatrician, the family doctor. And he was like, this is so strange that you went over there and they fixed it like this, what we couldn't do with you for years. He himself, as my own doctor, was like, was very shocked. But the whole point of me mentioning this is the hakim, he told me that all these times you've been doing hijama for your case is actually not going to be good. You needed a deep tissue massage. That's what he told me. SubhanAllah, maybe like a chiropractor, a chiropractor or like a physical therapist of some sort. And so he said, all of this time you've been doing hijama, it's actually going to be against you. And so subhanAllah, even though we were thinking that we're practicing the sunnah, it doesn't mean that it's going to be applicable in every situation. This is my own personal experience that I wanted to share with you all when it comes to the sunnah of hijama of the Prophet ﷺ. There was one companion, by the way, the Prophet ﷺ, he did hijama, and he told Abdullah ibn Zubayr that, take this blood and go bury it and put it, take it away. Abdullah ibn Zubayr, he went and then he drank it. What did he do? He drank the blood of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Is my blood and your blood like the blood of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? No. Our blood is najis, it's disgusting. The Prophet's blood is not najis. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his blood was not najis. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Sallu ala Rasulillah. And so he drank it. And then when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he heard of this, he got upset at him, of course, at first. But then he told him that the hellfire will never touch your body. And he said, in words, basically like, good luck to your enemies. Destruction is to anybody who goes and opposes you. And after that point, Abdullah ibn Zubayr was given such a strength that every battle that he was in, nobody could face him. Going against the Roman Empire, the Persian Empire, everyone Abdullah ibn Zubayr went against, Mafi. Until in his old age, we're talking about Abdullah ibn Zubayr radiallahu anhu, in his 70s, they used to call him Hamamatul Masjid. The bird that is always frequenting the masjid. He's always in the masjid. Masjid al-Haram in Mecca. Hajjaj, the whole story, I'm not going to go into Abdul Malik ibn Marwan, sent Hajjaj to overtake Mecca. Abdullah ibn Zubayr believed that the Khilafah should be in his hands and whatnot. There's a whole history behind it. And Hajjaj, with thousands of his soldiers, were trying to overtake Mecca, but Abdullah ibn Zubayr and his small band of people were protecting it. Can you imagine a small band of people? I think we're talking about a dozen or 2 dozen people only. Were able to keep an army of thousands outside of Masjid al-Haram. Until Hajjaj, he started to throw catapults into Mecca, into the Kaaba area. Hajjaj threw catapults into it, and one of those rocks happened to take the life of Abdullah ibn Zubayr radiallahu anhu, the great companion, who was the grandson of who? Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. He was the son of Asma. Asma, the daughter of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. So, subhanAllah, just because he drank the blood of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There's other instances that I've mentioned before where I believe it was Ayman, where she even drank the urine of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam made a dua for, also said that I believe it was, you would never feel thirst again. So different things related to, these are special things related to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That none of us, of course, experience. قُلْ إِنَّمَا أَنَا بَشَرٌ مِثْلُكُمْ. Of course, the Prophet ﷺ is a man like us, but يُوحَى إِلَيْهِ. He is the Prophet of Allah Azza wa Jalla. Rasulullah ﷺ, خَيْرُ خَلْقِ اللَّهِ. So he has, of course, these khasa'is. The next hadith, Ali radiallahu anhu, he said, the Prophet ﷺ, صلوا على رسول الله, he was cupped, and he ordered me to pay the cupper his wage, and thus I did. Again, proving that it's permissible for someone to take an income from it. I'll just mention quickly the different places that the Prophet ﷺ did it, okay? The top of his feet right here, okay? This area, okay? So you can imagine on both feet, the sides of the neck. I'll give the terms for it as we cover the hadith. The upper back, okay? Between the scapulas in a sense, and then the lower back as well, okay? So there's different places that the Prophet, and also the top of his head, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he also did it here. So these are the sunnah spots. So if you ever go to Medina or Mecca and you ever get to do hijama, you say, can I have the sunnah hijama? And then they'll give the sunnah spots, because they're taught that it's taught, of course, to them. The next hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, sallu ala Rasulillah. عن ابن عباس رضي الله عنهما إن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم احتجم على الأخدعين. The Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم was cupped on both sides of his blessed neck. These 2 spots over here, both sides of his blessed neck. It's called al-Akhda'ain. Say with me, al-Akhda'ain. And then between his 2 shoulders, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, like I showed you all. And he gave the cupper his wage, and had it been unlawful, he would have not given it to him. Again, proving many ahadith that it's of course permissible for someone to take an income from and a fee for doing hijama. And of course, it has to be, someone has to fulfill the need. Someone has to do it. I believe there is a few community members that do hijama in Nashville. There is, right? You know who? Yeah, there's one sister, I remember last year she did hijama. Allahu Alam. Huh? No, inshallah, I'm good. The masjid is going to get you in trouble, brother. Who? The Prophet ﷺ? Dr. Islam. Oh, Dr. Shahid Islam. He did many times to himself. Not himself. Oh, in Atlanta. No, but I believe there's someone in our local area that does it as well. If I find the details, I'll send it on the group chat, inshallah ta'ala. The next hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, he called for a cupper who came and cupped him. He asked him, how much is your labor tax? The man said, it is 3 sa'. The Prophet ﷺ had reduced it, similar to the hadith we covered before. The next hadith of Rasulullah ﷺ, and this one it caught my interest, to be honest. The Prophet ﷺ would get cupped on his blessed neck and upper back. He would have cupping done on the 17th, 19th, and 21st of what? February? March? The lunar calendar. The 17th, 19th, and the 21st. Okay? So the question is, why did the Prophet ﷺ, or why is this hadith mentioning these 3 specific days? Ibn Hajar and other commentators on the sciences of hadith, they said these narrations that have to do with specific days are actually weak. But let's just say, if they weren't, okay? And the Sahaba actually after them practiced on these days, okay? What is the wisdom behind on the 17th, 19th, and 21st? Wallahi, I was researching, and of course I'm limited with whatever knowledge I have when it comes to science, but I was researching why 17th, 19th, and 21. Of course, we know those are the days when the moon is closer to its fullest. It's when it was at its fullest and it's going back, it's returning. And so, is there a correlation? Allahu A'lam, I don't know. If someone can find the answer, I would be very appreciative. Is there any correlation? We know there's a correlation between the moon and the tides and the waves of the ocean, yes or no? But is there a correlation between the moon and our own blood? Is there or is there not? I don't know. I mean, the ulama that commentate on these ahadith, they said there is. They said the blood on these days especially is moving a lot. Allahu A'lam, I don't know. So maybe the doctors can comment on this. Is there something behind it? Is there not? And if there isn't, then we can also say that these ahadith were weak. Wallahu A'lam, I don't know. I was researching. I myself had not come to any conclusions. I'm curious, why 17th, 19th, and 21st?
We need biological research.
Yeah, we need some research done on it, really. And again, when it comes to prophetic medicine, we have to realize that our knowledge is very limited to, of course, divine revelation. So you have to approach it with caution as well, because you're talking about ahadith and sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and then also deal with it from a scientific lens. I don't know. This is a question that even people online can engage with. The next hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, the last one of the chapter, the Prophet ﷺ, Sallu ala Rasulillah, he had cupping done on the top of his blessed foot whilst he was in a state of ihram at Malal. Okay, and this is a place that is 17 miles away from Medina. So again, this also proves that you're allowed to do it in the state of ihram, and I've already covered the many different rulings. Again, reminding you all, hijama was done on his blessed feet, the top of his head, back of his neck, upper back, the lower back, and also on the top of his head, as I mentioned. We should all practice the sunnah of hijama. If you haven't done it, try to do it. A lot of people, when they go for Umrah or Hajj, they also take one visit to the clinic across from Quba, or in Mecca, or different spots, or even locally if you can. وصلى اللهم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Let's send salawat upon the Prophet ﷺ 10 times. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد. 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 اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا وحبيبنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. If there's any questions, comments, inshallah, I can take them. Bismillah. Is hijama in what?